Take a moment right here, feeling like it's out gear. Driving towards the sun with a rose and a gun. Feel the wind in my hair, going nowhere I swear. Like an outlaw on the run, dangerous but it's so fun. Running, running, no. Hold on, don't let go. Running, running, no. Keep running. Told my boss that I'm done. Had no luck with my mom. Say, what will you do with your life? You know it's hard to survive. A cigar in my mouth. Maybe guilty but proud. Now I'm an outlaw on the run. Dangerous but it's so fun. Running, running, no. Hold on, don't let go. Running, running, no. Keep running.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have arrived at the Divine League Winners Bracket Finals. We've got Soulbound Mirage versus Oasis Revenant on an unlikely climb to the top for both these two teams, starting the last seeds of the playoffs. But here they are, ready to climb to the very top of this here mountain. We've got Lemons and Gopherino Mowgli behind us on the production. We are ready for some games, and so are these teams as we are neck deep in the draft already. We've got Set, Ezreal, and Lulu banned away for Soulbound on the blue side. And then we have Oasis on the red side to take away the Graves, Caitlyn, and last ban coming in just a few seconds. It's going to be that Volley Bear.
And a lot of comfort picks already taken off the table here. That Set, that Lulu. Both of those big comfort picks for the side of Oasis Revenant here. But that does mean that Senna is open for that insta lock-in. I do know that Nox Joe here does play some Senna here. It's not his most played by any means, but it is still a very big comfort pick for him. And I'm curious to see how they decide to pilot it, because there is always the potential of, is it the fasting Senna? Is it the carry farming Senna? We'll have to see.
I am I was gonna say I'm super interested on what the response is gonna be here by Oasis, and it's actually going to be. So it looks like the Swain was supposed to be Blitzcrank, not Swain, but they're hovering Blitzcrank. So maybe they just want to pick Blitzcrank now and keep the Swain. Okay, cool.
Okay.
So Swain is Blitzcrank. So it's gonna be a Blitz Lucian combo for the first two pickups there for Oasis.
And that is interesting since the Thresh is open, and I know that Champs absolutely loves playing the Thresh. He literally has like 200 solo queue games this season on the Thresh, and it was open, so going for the Blitzcrank instead, definitely a little interesting. However, though, with that Blitzcrank and what I assume is going to be a Lucian bot lane, that Lucian can be, of course, flexed. We have seen it in the mid and top lane before. However, though, I mean, that is a really big kill lane, assuming that this Blitzcrank here for Champs does take that Ignite, because you really want to be locking down those kills in the laning phase as Blitzcrank to get this Lucian snowball.
You definitely do. I would be really interested to see if we get maybe a little bit of flex potential here for the draft for Oasis. I would be very excited because it is game one. You know, start off by throwing a wrench into the works for your enemy team. I love it. Leona, the lock in here with that Akali that we saw locked in a little bit ago as well. For the side of Soulbound. So stacking up some serious strength here. So it is going to be that more ADC centered style Senna down bot lane, but with the Leona, that is going to be a very strong combination.
Yeah, because that is just so much CC between these two bot laners, because you have to remember the Senna does, of course, usually take the Glacial Augment when you are farming Senna. That is a bunch of slows. You also get that root, and then, well, I mean, Leona's entire kit is that CC, but I did hear you pique your interest a little at this Vigard lock-in, Lemons.
You love to see it. Always that wonderful press R button champion. Although, you know, Vigard takes a little bit more skill with that. You got to farm. You got to do all these things, you know, go with it. It's all good. But I love to see it here with the combination. You pull with the Blitzcrank and the cage setup right on top of it. It is a very hard thing to fight up against and to play against, in all honesty. Really liking their composition so far that they've set up for themselves. But we got a little bit longer to go. We still have a couple pieces missing for either side, and we are getting into the second phase of bans here, Gofrino, as we have the Wukong band away there for Soulbound, and Silas is the response for Oasis, waiting on those last two.
Yeah, because I know both these top laners actually really like playing that Silas. I believe for both of them, it is in their top two played champions. So just taking that off. Also taking off the Shen here, who has been rising to prominence this patch with the passive buff, which has been kind of noticeable. More teams have been turning towards him. And we'll have to see what the final ban is here on the side of blue, since there have been a lot of top lane bans this second phase. I mean,
it's
sure, some of them are flexible. Yeah, we are going to continue that trend. The Vladimir band away. Vladimir, I know he has a lot of avid haters and very strong opinions I have heard about him. I can't say all of them word for word here because we would get demonetized, but just know that they aren't very kind words.
Well then, this is a family stream, all right?
That's true. We are all part of the Travi family.
We're all about to be part of the Summoner's Rift family here pretty soon once we get through this draft. But we still got stuff coming in here, Gofrino. We saw a lot of focus towards that top side with the last bans in the second phase, but now we have our picks coming through, and we've got Gragas for Oasis going to be their jungler coming out and just adding even more chaos to the mix of their composition.
And I know that Gragas is definitely a pick that Scouting Ground does like, because he typically prefers to stick to very high damage junglers, very bursty junglers. The only real exception tends to be Ivern, which is a little bit of an oddity since Ivern does have, like, historically speaking, one of the lowest and smallest player bases in all of League of Legends. Only really rivaled by Talia and Skarner, I believe. Either way, the response is going to be that Jarvan, who will, of course, bring that insane lockdown. Because you have to remember here that this Vigor, this Blitzcrank, they can be locked up very well by that Cataclysm.
I was really liking Oasis's composition. You know, I bought a ticket for the train. I had everything packed. I was ready to go. I was about to get on board. And I see this shiny other train on the other side of the tracks that's got the wombo combo of dreams here coming out for Soulbound as they get that Jarvan, as you mentioned, but the Orianna on top of it all is going to do so much for their composition. The Maokai, the last lock-in, though, for Oasis, that's going to provide them a little bit more tankiness. And then they're going to be pretty much going off the back of the Lucian and Veigar damage sources.
Yeah, and I do like the Maokai lock in here, because you have to remember that when you look at the side of Soulbound Mirage here, think about that Nature's Grasp ultimate this Maokai has, because a lot of these picks, they won't really be able to deal with it too well. Like the Akali, sure, you can dip and dive, but when you're in that Shroud, you're a super easy target for that ultimate. Of course, Senna doesn't exactly have a innate mobility outside of a camouflage, and then of course Orianna is really easy to root up, and then when you combine that with the Gragas too, who can just of course bouncy cath, so people into your team, bounce them away from your team. I do really like this draft so far coming out from the side of Oasis Revenant.
Yeah, and I feel like there's some pieces that are in essence the same style for both teams, but I feel like they both are approaching it in kind of a different way. And I'm really excited. I do think that the AP damage for Soulbound is a little high, but if you get kills rolling, if you get the snowball started on either of these champions, Akali or Orianna, you're gonna have a great time. And there are some squishier members to go up against there. I do want to see though how the junglers affect the pace of the game, and especially how the objectives go down, because both of these compositions really looking at some objective fighting. They've got a lot of pieces to go a little bit crazy in front of those pits. So I think it's going to come down to a lot of that execution and how that all plays out, and especially early on in this best of 5 series, it's going to mean a lot.
Yeah, because I mean, here's the thing about best of 5s is that they are very long lemons. Like
they can be. Yes.
As a caster, I've probably had to go to game number 5 in a very long series, and that takes a toll on us, even on the desk here. That's not even like we aren't even playing in the game. We aren't even having to make all those minute to minute, second to second, macro, micro decisions over the course of what could be several hours here. So game number 1 in best of 5s can always be so important, because it can help you set the tone for the series, set the pace for the series. And of course, it can give you that leg up if you happen to be the one that wins it.
So you get the potential of grabbing some of them coveted draft bucks. But seriously, being able to draft bucks. Come on,
Dravy.
Don't you know LS? No, just talking about like if you have a strong pick in game number 1, you force a different draft from the opposing team in game number 2, game number 3, and the rest of the series, honestly, and that affects the games very heavily. And so if one of these picks is going to pop off, you can look at a big change, or at least a singular change in the drafts for next time around. So I'm super excited to see these two teams clash. They are both 7 and 8 in the seeds coming to the playoffs, and now we see them in the winners final. And winner here actually gets a leg up in the grand finals over whoever they're going to face. They get an extra win under their belt there, and whoever loses here has to drop down into that lower bracket and fight their way back up, and it could be a trudge. So you definitely want to put your best foot forward here going into the grand finals.
Yeah, because I mean, there is a lot of games ahead, and if you do drop that losers bracket, I mean, it's going to be another best of 5 against whoever wins the Gothboy Click versus Honeyford Gaming series. And then if you do win that and go to the grand finals, you're going to have to face the same opponent that's beaten you before, and you're going to have to beat them twice.
Yep.
Hopefully the second time around will be a best of 1 if you do manage to get that bracket reset. So a little bit
pressure. The pressure on that best of 1, man, like that is just nutty to me. I honestly, I hope we get to that point. To be fair, like I would love to see that best of 1. I think it'd be so awesome. But just zooming back in at this matchup, this best of 5, this turning point in the tournament itself, where we're gonna see one of these now top 2 teams fall to the losers bracket. I want to see some pop-offs. I want to see these players feeling good, using the communication, the work that they've put in over this entire split, all channeled into this best of 5.
Yeah, I definitely do agree with that because it's like you got to winners finals. You got to show why you're worth that cake, why you earned your pie, why you're able to get that bread. Because if you come out and have a little bit of a disappointing showing here tonight, well, that's not going to bode the best for you and your chances in the future here. And like, I want to see the best out of these teams, Lemons. I mean, I know we can apply that to literally every cast because no one wants to go in and watch a team just literally throw or just do their worst. Like, you know, people don't like that. It's bad to watch, but more so tonight, especially because this is the winners finals. It's the, well, second biggest shebang out there.
Definitely is. And speaking of shebangs, we got to get this show on the road. We're going to get through a little spectator delay, but do not touch that browser. We've got game number 1 coming right at you. The trek has been made. These two teams have arrived at the winners finals. And we've got a game before us. We have gotten onto Summoner's Rift. And we have just an awesome game in front of us. Soulbound on the blue side with Oasis on the red side. Go Frino.
And I'm looking at the side of Oasis Rev here because you do have that Blitzcrank level 1. You can go for these super cheesy things. Like,
Hey, Scouting Ground wins the game. He got the one auto attack.
yeah. Oh, well. Doesn't look like we'll see too much in terms of spice. It looks like Paralysis might be trying an over the Dragon Wall hook here. That could be really interesting. There are a lot of ways he can do that. He can, of course, go for the Tri-Brush hook. That would be nice for like just spooking someone who might be in that. But
So,
yeah, you're saying?
so Best Turtle just did the
Lemon?
most trickery I've seen. So he pressed up into that bush against Scouting Grounds and didn't ward. So he just made Scouting Ground think he warded over there, and then ended up warding the pixel bush a little bit further back. I don't know if it's gonna come to anything, but hey, I mean, I like the mind game starting out for Best Turtle.
I mean, yeah,
Like he
the best
hard
way to
committed,
start off
bro.
a series that's a best of 5 is just get into your opponent's head right off the bat. Because as
Ooh.
soon as you start messing with their mental, next thing you know, the whole house of cards starts falling down.
And if Paralysis would have hit that hook, I'm sure the mental would have taken even more of a hit. But yeah, it's just funny. Best Turtle, like, hard committed. He walked him like melee touching range of Scouting Ground.
He ate an auto.
That's just crazy to me. I just think that's so funny. But I'm sure we'll see these junglers actually go at it decently quickly in this match.
Hopefully, I mean, when you have a Jarvan, when you have a Gragas, you can, of course, look for a lot of early potential action. They're both very good level 2 gankers. If you do want to try and pull that off, I mean, we're obviously not seeing it this game, and it's not something you typically see every game, since it is a little risky. It's not, like, turbo high risk, but you do always run the risk of your camps getting stolen, getting the 3 buff.
Yeah.
That can always suck. Of course, though, top lane, we got back there to a bunch of trading. Rest E-Boy actually taking the door and bringing this matchup, which is very interesting. Never mind that. Here comes Best Turtle. Let's see what happens.
He has arrived for the gank here. See the health getting a little bit lower. The Flag and Drag not going to connect. The flash did come out from Hubris, though.
Yep, able to get out the flash of that Maokai. That's always nice. It will, of course, get E-Boy some extra time in this top lane, but look at the reply.
That is going to land on Havoc. He's just going to get dropped. He's going to try to get the engage on Scouting Ground. But now Nox Joe might have overextended a little bit. He's going to take a good trade, but he gets the soul out of Slayer, so all worth. But First Blood going over, and it's going to be secured by Scouting Ground on the Gragas.
You would have really liked to see that kill go over to Slayer in an optimal world. However, though, I mean, you still do get First Blood here in this bot lane. You do force out the heal from Nox Joe, so it's definitely still good. It's just one of those like nitpick things where it's like, wow, if we're doing 100% pure optimal play here, you know, that sort of stuff. Still, great props here to the side of Oasis Revenant for picking up that First Blood. That's what you want to see on that Lucian Blitzcrank lane. You'll want to see them popping off early, because we all know that Lucian does kind of have to win the lane to win game. It's not as terrible as some other AD carries, but it does get a little bit noticeable.
It definitely does, and Paralysis going for a gank, but Scouting Ground has caught Best Turtle in the jungle there. Is going to do a good amount of damage to him as well with that Electrocute proc. Paralysis going for the hook, not going to land it in the mid lane. Oppressed E-Boy oppressing Hubris in the top side, and we just have a lot of aggression across the board. It is going to be Oasis looking at this dragon, though. 35 seconds. It is the Ocean Dragon as our first Drake on the Rift.
And early ocean dragons are always fairly big. I mean, sure, a singular ocean dragon, it won't mean too much in the grand scheme of things. That is the case with most dragons, but especially the ocean dragons, since, I mean, 2.5% of your missing health every 5. In the later stages of the game, when you're talking about a team fight, it's like, it's, you know, you'll take it. But it is definitely somewhat noticeable in the early laning phase where it is extended. You are just trading abilities here and there, and just having that a little extra pinch of health regen, it might mean you pick up an extra wave that you weren't supposed to, or you're forced back. Who knows? Either way, none of these teams really eyeing up the strike quite yet. Lemons just warning up around it, but no real moves have been made to capture it.
Yeah, and Scouting Ground was down towards that area, but I guess they're not going to prioritize it too heavily. We see both junglers going up towards their top side, so hey, making me look like a fool. It's all good.
Yeah, I mean, there's a tarot card called the Fool, so maybe you're a little famous in the fortune telling.
Yes, it's been me all along, the fool.
Yeah, I mean, fooling. What can just out here Saturday fooling. Either way, though, I mean, it has been a
Saturday
very
fooling,
calm
what?
game ever since that first blood we saw over 2 minutes ago.
Yeah, you're right. We are going to see a return to lane state here, though. Steel City Warrior in the mid lane is going to get a reset, as well as Glacier Freeze. I wonder, I'm guessing he's not going to use the TP here. He might just to get the pressure on the wave, though, for Glacier Freeze, as he does have TP advantage over Steel City Warrior. In his bot lane, seeing a lot of just a farm situation here. You got a decent lead for Slayer in the minions, but Noxjo does have a lot waiting to crash into the wave. The thing that's starting to worry me here, Gopherino, is this top lane. Hubris not having a good time against the Akali.
Yeah, and I do think a lot of that was just set up by the tempo of that early game that we saw. Sure, it only forced out a flash, but giving a little bit of extra time to this Akali to get the proper lane tempo you want, get the proper recall, get a small CS advantage. It's pretty big, as that is Dragon going down in favor of Oasis Revenant. They're going to be pretty happy about that. Very easy peasy, but going back to the top lane, like you were saying, Hubris, it is going to suck a little bit for him. I mean, thankfully, he is the Maokai. We already see that Null Magic Mantle in his inventory. He does have that Aftershock. See him going here, like, he shouldn't be taking much damage, if at all, when he has that Aftershock proc. Either way, though, a lot of fighting happening. Let's see if anything happens.
Yeah, a lot of little skirmishing everywhere. Got a kerfuffle in the mid lane, little fight in the top lane, and some skirmishing in the bot lane as well. But looks like nobody's really going to commit to anything at this point. Best Turtle just going to be able to clear out a little bit more vision.
And just a lot of calm before the storm, I feel here, Lemons, because there is definitely potential here for some blow-ups, for some potential kills here, because there's a level 6 Gragas on the Rift, dropping about to hit level 6. Look in the mid lane, though. That is a good stun. Scouting Ground is a little out of range, though.
The slow on Scouting Ground was nicely done by Steel City. He was able to not get as close as he wanted to land that casket, because, you know, that casket comes down. It's a bit rough. But they get out, and Steel City Warrior going to save his cleanse. Still has Flash, still feeling really good in the mid lane.
And that is pretty good here for Steel City Warrior, because it means you don't die to that Vigar. Like, when you start falling behind a Vigar in the mid lane as a immobile mage who has roughly similar range to him, it can kind of suck. I mean, there definitely are bigger sucky phases that you could go through if you are, like, let's say a very squishy melee champion into that Vigar. Like, say it was an Akali here before they swapped that would be a living hell, to put bluntly. Either way, though, props to Steel City Warrior, and it does look like he is going for the Saris build on the Orianna. I know this has been something that's been cropping up more recently, even though a lot of people this past year have historically been vouching. Never mind that. There's the Shockwave, but there's Shock Miss more like.
Shock Miss, I like it. 20 CS lead up here in the top lane, but Hubris doesn't care. He's going in for the trades. He's on the wrong side of this, maybe just trying to pressure away. Best Turtle gets a flash. He is going to go down here. Casket actually misses, but still Scouting Ground picking up that kill there. He's going to secure another one. That's 2-0 on the Gragas now.
That is a little bit of a scary prospect here, because when this Gragas gets ahead, I'm assuming Scouting Ground is going to be going for a little bit more damage this game, since you do have the Maokai in the top lane. You are snowballing as this Gragas, so he can look to get some potential really nasty one-shots onto Steel City Warrior, onto Noxjo. But because of all this presence in the top lane, it does mean the spot lane turret is under fire. Still, though, AKM Slayer, he's probably like, I'm not getting CS. But on the opposite side, I mean, your team does get that kill. They do get the Rift Shield. You do get a little bit of pressure in that top lane, so that's a hook.
The Solar Flare going down there, as well as the Dawning Shadow. Havoc goes straight under tower. That's going to be the calling, and Havoc's just dead. As Noxjo is now going to be chased down. The knockup coming there. Noxjo getting very low. Paralysis is going to get rooted up, and good amount of damage, though. Noxjo needs to keep running. And could be
relentless pursuit
out of here. On the track, Best Turtle is here. Can he get a revenge play onto Slayer? He is going to be able to secure that one. He could get another one, too. The Cataclysm comes out. Flash follows by Paralysis. Now another jungler. Who the revolving door? Who's next? Who's bringing it in? Who do we got? But they aren't going to be able to get anything from that. And a bit unfortunate there, but it ends up in 4-1 advantage here for Oasis.
And that is kind of big here, because you also have to look at Noxjo and the Havoc here. They both died. Neither of them got an assist for that kill into AKM Slayer. So for all intents and purposes, like, they weren't able to get anything back from that. The Havoc, though, he's gonna meet an enemy jungler here. Does he actually steal this? No, he does not. Does he actually get out, though? You have to remember there's a bit of a collapse coming down. Look at this Vygar. Look at the solution. Look at the cask.
Yeah, the shockwave came down as well from Steel City. He just needs to get out of there as Havoc falls. The flash coming out from the Orianna, though, is going to let him escape for the meantime. But it's devolved into a bit of chaos. Meanwhile, talking about chaos, during all of that, Scouting Ground did secure that Rift Herald. So we'll have to see where he wants to use it. It's looking like he wants to try bot lane, but not going to get the window that he wanted. Meanwhile, 15 seconds for a Mountain Dragon spawning, meaning we have a potential of a Cloud Rift or an Infernal Rift.
50-50 if you do want to take your bets. However, though, the Havoc, I mean, that was way too aggressive, just going into enemy jungle like that. You should have just seen that immediately get out, but instead he does trade up his life here. That gives over another kill and just adds more pressure onto his bot lane. Now there's a 3-kill Lucian here, and that is definitely a snowballing Lucian here. He's even going for the Mana Mune build this game, which is interesting. It does give you a lot of mana to play with, and it can give you a much harder, like roughly 2 to 3 item power spike, depending on how quickly you stack it up. I'm curious to see what he gets after this, because he can go for the board. He can go for the Essence Reaver as Dragon being started. That's a great
nice hook. That's going to be huge. And the mid laner for Soulbound goes down. Steel City Warrior biting the dust, and the Dragon as well is going to go over to Oasis, and that's going to be number 2 secured.
And, I mean, Oasis, they're just clawing further and further ahead in this game. It feels like this Blitzcrank can't be stopped because he can just pick anyone at this point. That hook missing, thankfully, here for the spot lane. They still have to be careful. There is still that cask available for Scouting Ground. He can do Flash Body Slam. There still is a Rift Herald in his back pocket, too. So thankfully, they do have Best Turtle down here with them if they do want to force a 3 versus 3. However, though, how far ahead this Gragas and Lucian are, it might be a little tricky here for the side of Soulbound Mirage. Let's see, because they are on that ward. We might see a little bit of a debate here from that bush.
So I've been trying to remember. There was a point. Ooh, there's the Rift Herald bot lane. So they really need to do something there. I will expand on that here pretty shortly. But we're going to see a push here. A lot of gold going over. Do they want to take the fight after this? Cataclysm goes on to Scouting Grounds. Doesn't take a lot of damage. The follow-up is a bit late, but Solar Flare comes down. Dawning Shadow is going to be queued up, and he's going to fall. That's a nice bit of shutdown gold going over to Senna as well. 600 into the pocket of Noxjo.
That is absolutely massive for this Senna, who was falling behind. Had it not been for this 600 gold shutdown, I mean, he's already about 700 gold down right now, so it would have been over 1k gold if they hadn't got that kill over him, which is very nice. Either way, though, they are able to get a few plays with that Rift Herald, at least for the side of Oasis Revenant, so it's not all for naught, but giving over that big shutdown, giving over some tempo in that bot lane, that is always going to be big here, because 80 carries, they kind of like getting gold, and well, you just kind of gave a juicy shutdown to an 80 carry.
All right, so I want to expand on what I was going to say earlier, and I forgot it for the longest time because we had all this fighting happen on the bot side, but towards the top side, so we've known Hubris has been having some problems against oppressed E-Boy. He has not had the best farm. He has not been doing well, but I love his decision. I love what he did. He started playing super aggressive in the lane, and he actually started proxying the wave. He was pushed up, if we don't remember, he was pushed up between the towers, just pushing that wave over and over again, and he's gotten himself within 20 again, which for a Maokai, not too bad. I like the decision to play that aggressive stance to try and get yourself back into the farm game, at least in the top side.
Yeah, I mean, granted, though, that was before this current item purchase. It was. Now with the Gunblade on this Akali, that is just always such a massive power spike for the Akali, because now Oppressed E-Boy, he has that ranged little damage proc that also slows you for about 40%. That's great for catching up people, but also just the dummies sustain at Grand Seal. Like, it is, what, about 15 or 20% Omnivamp, I believe. Let me just quickly check. It is 15% Omnivamp on all abilities, on all autos. That's pretty big. Blitzcrank, gonna flash out.
Nice flash from Paralysis.
that definitely was a very timely flash there, because any later, any sooner, it might have been a little bit more tricky. Might not have gone over the wall, might have still got hit by any potential CC, so props to him. Of course, though, Blitzcrank without flash can always be a little bit of a feels bad man, since flash hook plays can be so nasty. Still, though, I do believe Paralysis did take the Hex Flash here. No, he did not, actually, so that's going to suck a little for this Blitzcrank, but it's not going to be a make-or-break deal for this game. It is a personal preference thing. That is the second Rift Herald of this game, going over to Oasis Revenant once again. There's a Cataclysm.
I think Best Turtle's a little mad. I think. He just went all in there on Scouting Ground. And he wasn't able to get him. The flash came out over the Cataclysm wall, and then just the dash across the back of the Baron Pit. So Scouting Ground gets out. He gets the Rift Herald. And now they're looking at even more gold here on the bot side, though. Paralysis has a really good angle here. How is he going to go for the hook? The Solar Flare. His ADC is going to be dead before he even gets onto Nox Joe. Paralysis taking way too long. The counter engage coming through from Havoc. And they get the Solar Flare right onto Slayer, and they take him down.
And that's the thing with this Blitzcrank pick, because you weren't able to get hit onto the right target there. And of course,
he had the angle.
He did, but sadly, didn't work out in the end. That's another kill going over to the Senna, who's now 3-1, able to pick up that Dustblade too, which is going to be fairly substantial. I personally would have made a slight argument here for a potential Edge of Night, because when you're looking at a Blitzcrank, when you're looking at the Vigor cage, it can be handy to have that spell shield. Of course, though, I mean, Dustblade does grant you much, much more damage. It does also give you CDR. So it is a little personal preference thing, although the Umbral Glaive, kind of expected that, because usually you see that it is a much earlier power spike.
Glacier Freeze.
It's trouble brewing.
There's a lot of people in that bush, and that is a poor and very dead Vigor. Potentially followed up by a dead Blitzcrank here as all 5 members. Hey, these are the strats you don't expect. 5 members show up in the mid lane, going to cut off 2 members from Oasis. Meanwhile, Havoc getting cut off a little bit here. The Dragon has been started by Best Turtle, though, and they will just secure this one under the vision of Oasis and say, yeah, you can have that.
But first Dragon of the game here for the side of Soulbound Mirage. That's going to stall out any potential soul shenanigans from Oasis here. Not to mention, of course, you're getting more kills in your pockets. You've even evened up the kill line here. Now it's 6-6, where it used to be 6-2. You do, of course, for the side of Oasis Revenant, get that first tower in the bot lane, which is nice. You get that little bit of extra cha-ching, so you keep it relatively even. However, though, giving over those 2 kills, giving over that Infernal Dragon, that can be a little yikes as Scouting Ground. Let's see what happens here. There is a lot of potential.
Solar Flare going down, Cataclysm right onto him. The Shockwave is where Glacier Freeze just get targeted out again. And this is the problem that you can potentially run into, where you only have certain points of damage on your team. Best Turtle taking up some serious tower damage. They get another kill for it, though. And we've seen the momentum shift here, except for Scouting Ground picking up a kill on Oriana. We've seen a momentum shift where now it's actually Soulbound who have the kill lead, the gold lead. They don't have the objective lead, obviously, but they are doing just fine and dandy. Meanwhile, speaking of it, they're going to lose their mid tower. Almost, actually. I thought it was going to be enough. My damage calculation was not there. Scouting Ground gets a little belly bump onto Best Turtle as he was going for the flag and drag. Double TP coming in the mid lane. They really want this mid tower. As Nox Joe a little bit caught on the side there. They're not going to get anything else from it.
Definitely a little... That was definitely one teleport too many. I definitely got the first teleport there. Like, yeah, you want to dissuade any aggression coming out. Just make sure your homies stay alive. But the second one there, it's like, I don't think you're getting anything off of this. Better safe than sorry, I guess. Either way, though, Hubris is taking a fat load of damage from the Senna from Nox Joe, even though he itemized that Sunfire Cape already,
Nox
which is
Joe,
kind of interesting.
I see doom in your future here, buddy. They're just taking turns fully ganking these guys. Like, this feels so bad. Like, who's next? Who's got the wanted poster up now?
I don't know. Like, if we're going by bounty here, I mean, Best Turtle, he does have a bounty, and usually if you have
literally
bounty,
has a bounty.
there's a wanted poster for you. You can't also have a one poster if you're lost, so, you know, maybe he is the family cat and maybe he just strayed off a little too far.
Near and dear to our hearts as we have a cat that's producing for us right now. Scouting ground going to walk into some trouble here, though, potentially. He does a little drift outwards. They are going to pick up a tower on the top side, though. A nice little bit of gold going in their pockets.
And that is all the outer turrets taken down already by Oasis Revenant. That is always very huge, getting down those outer towers, because now it just lets you push into that enemy jungle and just establish a lot of control. And especially when you look at the fact you have a Gragas, you have a Blitzcrank, that is insane pick potential here at Lemons. Like, walking into a dark jungle and there's a Blitzcrank you don't know, well, good luck dodging that hook.
Yeah, I'm a little interested to see Oppressed E-Boy's later TPs. He hasn't really utilized his TPs in an aggressive manner, although you would kind of expect it to be in with an Akali, but maybe that's all a plan for later in the game, because I do think he's going to have a huge impact in the team fights and the way that they're approached because of how deadly an Akali can be when you hit those couple item spikes.
Yeah, like, God, because I don't think we're going to be seeing much magic resist for at least a while on Slayer and Glacier Freeze here. So they're both going to be very vulnerable if they don't have any of their flashes up, their dashes up, or, of course, the cage. So keep an eye out on that. Of course, though, Oppressed E-Boy definitely not out of control by any means here. 1-0-1 has that 30 CS lead, which is very nice, but it's not exactly like insta one-shot you sort of nice.
Yeah, for sure. And we're seeing a bit of vision game going on here. Paralysis looking for the hooks, but Scouting Ground actually goes in a little bit over eager there. The casket came out. Ultis are just getting blown here. I mean, that's a lot used by both teams, honestly. As the solar, well, not a lot, I guess, too much by Soulbound means, but the solar flare has been a crucial piece of your engage every single time here. Now Paralysis in a good spot to hook. That is going to be the Zenith Blade landing. Here comes the Grasping Roots on the backside of it. Shockwave going to land onto the tanks here. Best Turtle goes in, gets a huge flag and drag. The Dawning Shadow provides a lot of shielding there. Oppressed E-Boy so low, but not going to go down. Nobody is except for Hubris at this point. The flashes are abounding here. Nox Cho just gets hammered down by Glacier Freeze, who scores himself a double kill. The bot lane is no more for Soulbound, and now it is once again Oasis Revenant looking at the dragon.
And what a beautiful team fight coming out from Oasis Revenant there. They're able to go 2-for-1. They're able to scare themselves the soul point here, and good lord, Nox Joe just blew up there. We saw the fun and interactive part of Igar's kit where he lands 2 spells on you and then presses the ulti and kills you, so Nox Joe definitely feeling a little salty about that one. And it's kind of curious too here, because the start of that fight, it looked pretty good for Soulbound Mirage. Like, they had the picks.
D-Boy though, he got wrecked. He like went in a little bit too fast before his team really got the distraction going, and yeah, you just can't. He got out though with like sub 10 health, but at that point it turns into a 4v5, and that's just no bueno.
Yeah, very unfortunate. And Oppressed E-Boy wasn't able to get any assassinations down on the backside either, which is kind of big. Although if we take a look at his inventory now, he did get that Banshee's Veil here. He already has the Merc Tread, so that is a very substantial bout of magic resist here. So let's see, what does that put him at, actually? I'm kind of curious. If the text could hide itself for a second here, that'd be nice. As the text won't stop. Okay, there we go. 145 magic resist already on this Akali, and that's not something to shrug at when there isn't much magic pen built outside of those Sork boots there, but that's just flat for the most part. Either way, though, we saw a little bit of a potential trap coming out from Soulbound Mirage, not able to get anything with it. Sniffed out. There's the hook.
Oh, not gonna land. Everything used. Solar Flare going down. That is your carry stunned up, but on the backside, Nox Joe again just gets decimated. The next to fall is going to be Havoc. You are losing these fights here. Culling comes down, expertly done, right onto Oppressed E-Boy. All the health bars here for Soulbound are shrinking. The back coming out. Best Turtle gonna get a nice sneaky escape there as pings coming down onto the Baron. That is going to be all day long with Oasis Revenant pulling out these fights.
God, and That was such a disgusting ult from Scouting Ground there. He's able to single out Noxjo, able to basically 2-tap him after that ultimate with no auto attacks coming out whatsoever from Noxjo. And that's absolutely massive, taking down this Senna, who is going to be such a huge source of that consistent damage. And right now, I feel like Noxjo, he's kind of wishing he did have that, why am I forgetting the name of it right now? The Edge of Night. I don't know why I always forget that name. Either way, though, there's the Flag and Drag.
There'd be a huge portion of damage coming down, but this could be the moment where you turn it around a bit. They aren't going to be able to. It is the tankier member of... it's a literal tree, Gofrino. It's a literal tree. That's all I'm going to say.
Little tree, and you don't have any axes, which always kind of hurts. I mean, Noxjo, he does have that fully completed Lord Dominic's there. He does also have that fully stacked Muramana and that that Dustblade, so he can actually chunk Hubris fairly well and DPS him to a certain extent. I mean, Senna auto attacks, you know, they're kind of slow, so DPS is always a little wonky on her. Either way, though, not being able to get that singular kill onto Hubris, it's gonna leave a very sour taste here in Soulbound Mirage's mouth here, because that would have taken away the main split push Baron buff there. It would, of course, afforded you a bit of extra time to stall out this Baron buff when you have that 5 versus 4 on the map. And it would have just helped them out a lot here. I mean, don't get me wrong, they aren't out by any means here, because looking at
all you gotta do is catch out Glacier Freeze, I feel like. I mean, there's obviously other parts, but...
And that's definitely possible. You have a Leona, you have an Orianna, you have a Jarvan, for crying out loud. You can catch out this Veigar, who doesn't have the cleanse, who only has the flash, really. It is up for him right now, but if you're able to use an ultimate to get out that Veigar flash, that is still fairly huge.
It is, and Paralysis always looking for the hooks here. We do see a dragon spawning about 45 seconds, and it is soul point for Oasis, and that is huge for the Infernal Soul, especially being able to get that Veigar even more burst damage, being able to give Slayer that little bit of extra damage on his pop-offs, and honestly, the Blitzcrank with that initial grab damage from the hook is just going to be so strong with that Infernal buff to it. And we got 25 seconds here for Soulbound to make a move, for them to do something and not let this soul just go down. TP already coming out here from Veigar to come join the fight.
Prestige Boy does have his own teleport here. He is at 2.5 items. Best Turtle gonna be caught out.
That's gonna be huge. Best Turtle just gets dropped, but the Shockwave comes down on top of him. That's gonna be a lot of damage returned to Prestige Boy into the back. That is Glacier Freeze getting low, but he doesn't have the damage to take him down, and Akali's just gone. Havoc onto the backline. Glacier Freeze does finally fall, but everybody else on the side of Soulbound is as well. Scouting Ground going to try to find one more. Steel City getting the flash out. They do escape, but it is going to be a 3-for-1 in favor of Oasis Revenant, and that is just going to be a free objective yet again given over.
And it's gonna be this soul this time. Sure, they don't have a lot of that Baron buff left. In fact, they have none of it left with how much time has passed. However, though, I mean, you have to look at the other things they managed to pick up here. Sure, they didn't pick up any turrets, but what do you get for it? You got 3 kills. You get yourself another Infernal Dragon and that Infernal Soul, which is gonna be hurting so much, because you look at the side of Soulbound Mirage here. Sure, Best Turtle can take a hit. The Havoc can also take a hit decently well too, but everyone else can get blown up so easily on their team comp. And hey, Hubris might even be able to get some solos on this Maokai if we're talking about Noxjo, if we're talking about Steel City Warrior here.
And that's one of the biggest things playing out in this first game, is how this mid lane kind of has gone and the focus around it, honestly. I mean, you saw a lot of fighting, a lot of just early aggression from both teams, but it turned out to be this mid lane that was the crucial point for it, in how the junglers bridged themselves into that mid lane and trying to get these guys ahead.
And I'm curious to see what they do after this point, because still, this game isn't over by any means here. Like, there's still a lot of League to be played here. I'm looking at this Baron spawning up in about a minute and a half here, and I feel like that might just be the do or die time here for Soulbound Mirage, because you already are down that soul point here. Having trouble really fighting these fights, even when it seems you have to leg up initially. So I'm curious to see how that folds out.
Very true. The gold lead is not insurmountable here for Soulbound whatsoever. I just think it's the fights that have been going a little bit rough. If we look a little bit back at that last team fight, it was a catch out, and then everyone still grouped up for the side of Oasis. Oppressed E-Boy tried to go back and get Glacier Freeze on the back line. And those kinds of engagements just can't happen. And first of all, the catch out can't happen. But like, you've got to have the same momentum going for everybody. If you're going in, you're going in. I want to see the Jarvan in there. I want to see everybody. It just seemed like everybody was pulling back, although the Akali was still going in. And those are the miscommunications, the decision making that isn't quite there yet. That's a bit unfortunate, and that makes these games so hard to come back from.
Yeah, because I mean, Oppressed E-Boy, preferably he just waits it out and starts team fights a little later. Good lord, look at that damage dissolution here for Slayer. It's absolutely massive with 4 items complete, including that fully finished Manamune. And you have to keep in mind when he procs the passive double shot, he's proccing that Manamune passive on both those autos, so it hurts a little.
It definitely does. And those power spikes definitely coming alive here. We got 4 items for almost both ADCs. Nox Joe lagging behind just a bit, also lagging behind in kills and CS, so that's obviously why. Oh my goodness, that first round of damage from Glacier Freeze onto the Baron, that does so much damage. The best turtle is around here. He shows himself early though. He's got the standard out, the slow's coming down. You might not want to have done that. Best turtle, they didn't know you were there. He's going to try to get in there. Baron at 3,000 health, he just doesn't have the health bar. That calling is going to be nicely done. The smite coming down onto the Krugs to get some health back, and that's just another free objective over on to Oasis Revenant's. Best turtle stayed around way too long, and Slayer's just going to clean him up. At this point, the gold lead has now ballooned. It was only 4,000 gold. Now you're looking a little bit more, and the pace of the game is not anywhere on the side of Soulbound.
And Soulbound Mirage, I feel like at this point they kind of have to be looking a little towards the next game here. Miracles can happen. I'm not saying they're out of this by any means, but it is dire straits. Like, you weren't able to do anything about that Baron. You lost your jungler too. You're going to be losing an inhibitor here very easily. Could be losing even more here with just this momentum picked up. However, though, I mean, the side wave's not exactly lining up here quite yet for Oasis Revenant, so they're probably just going to look to back here and then push out those side waves to try and get some more pressure down, since you got a lot of gold in your pockets. Might as well spend it. You're going to have Supers barreling down that mid lane here right now, so you're going to get that free push. You're still going to have a decent chunk of Baron. And yeah,
Slayer just has 2,300 gold in his pocket right now. He's like trying to decide what he's going to buy. He buys the Phage. That's going to be huge for him, as well as he finished up his little bits and pieces that he had left. So I just think that at this point, the power spikes are really hitting. You have Scouting Ground, who has gotten some good items for himself, who is doing a lot of damage, and another force you have to reckon with. It is going to be a bit of a bush play here for Soulbound. They've got to find a way back into this game. Meanwhile, they're waiting in this bush, and Oasis going for the objectives, what really matters.
Yeah, they're not going to get anyone here. No one is pathing through there, and it's going to backfire a decent chunk here. I mean, I don't think they would have realistically been able to go head on into that Baron up enemy team, as, look for this.
They're going to be looking for something. Oppressed E-Boy might be caught out here. The redemption coming down, buying a lot of time. That's a lot of healing. Hubris on the backside, though, calling right into the middle of everything. Grasping Roots comes down as well. Hubris super tanky. Who's on the backside? That's going to be a big shockwave onto Glacier Freeze. Glacier Freeze goes down. That's your damage. But now Slayer is coming online here. Hubris still in the backline this whole time, flashing forward, going for the kills. He has the Infernal Soul, and he's looking to deal the damage. But Slayer comes in and finishes off Best Turtle. The emote comes out. He's just BMing Oppressed E-Boy at this point. I like the thumbs up from Oppressed E-Boy. He's like, it's all good. Meanwhile, the base is falling here, potentially. Slayer looking to finish it off, though Nox Joe does a lot of damage at this point on this Senna. Does have a good amount of souls and has some items to her build. And Hubris still. This is just a song. You could
Mowgli,
make
play
a
the
movie
Benny
out
Hill,
of it at
please.
this point.
Please. Even though it is copyrighted, so we probably can't. Either way, though, at least the Pressy Boy is technically eating up a lot of time.
Another grasping roots. Oh, no. This fight's been going on so long that Hubris had another grasping roots. My goodness, that is so rough. Paralysis says, I have come to stop this shenanigans.
Oof, and that's unfortunate. I mean, you do waste a lot of time from the Maokai. You do get a paralysis flash there, but you do, of course, die right before this Elder Dragon spawns, and you're already this far behind, and now you're going to be trying to contest it. Yeah, that dragon's going to fall very easily. You're going to see the backs come out, and fun fact, Hubris, he has a stinger on this Maokai, so maybe a little bit of potential BM coming out here. Maybe this is some sort of secret item that I don't know about, but it is going to be that Gnasher's Tooth in a bit here.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, I think you're just they're spending their money on like grills and like rings and necklaces and like the accessories, like the stuff that you don't need. They've already got like all the essentials. They're going for flair at this point.
And flair is always nice. Styling on your opponents can be very strong for the mental when we're talking about game number one, yeah. However, though, can't BM too hard here, because if you throw this game number one after you have this sort of lead, then you just kind of, you know, have a little bit of a truckle too hard, and next thing you know, you lose the game. It's like, that can have the opposite effect. Either way, though, here comes the minions. Here comes the supers. We're probably going to see one more fight here. Great hook.
Nice hook. The silence coming out on Steel City. He's going to get away from it, though. Pressy Boy going to the background. He just gets obliterated. The casket comes out. The dragon wings coming down to end the hopes of game number one here for Soulbound, as their Nexus is going to be the target. They want to go for some more kills. Nox Joe goes golden one last time before the end of game number one, before he sees that gray screen. And there goes the Nexus. And it is going to be Oasis Revenant going up game number one.
And that was a fairly strong showing here. It wasn't a stump by any means, but it felt like Oasis Revenant, they just had Soulbound Mirage's number the entire game. It felt like Soulbound Mirage couldn't do anything into this Oasis Revenant draft, because every time they did try something, they just eat up way too much CC, way too much damage, and by the time they would finally get to someone in the backline, maybe finally get a kill, I mean, you've already burnt through so much cooldowns, you've burnt through so much of your health bar, and next thing you know, everybody on your side just gets blown up.
Very, very true. It was a hectic game number one, neck and neck for the longest time, but then at one point it just blew open for Oasis, and they just had the right stuff to take the team fights. Honestly, they just went so well in their favor. And honestly, looking at Slayer here, 13-2 on the Lucian, really popping off on that pick. Helped out a lot to have that Blitzcrank land in those crucial hooks on the important targets. But you just all around, I think, can look at game number one's performance here for Oasis and feel pretty confident about it.
Yeah, because Soulbound Mirage, it's like, I don't feel like there's any glaring weaknesses they had. Like, there wasn't any major slip-ups. It just felt like they got outclassed. Like, that's a little hard to say. Not exactly quite the word I'm looking for. It's like a slightly softer version of that. Either way, though, the results speak for themselves. 1-0 in the favor of Oasis Revenant at the start of this best-of-5 series.
We'll have to see. We're going to send it to a break while we get ready for game number two and get everything sealed tight and ready to see, hopefully, some serious action come out from Soulbound here in game number two. But we'll be right back. We're going to send to this break. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. If the Thresh gets picked up here for Oasis, I think that goes really, really well to start off Oasis's composition. I really hope we don't just get like Soulbound going the exact composition that Oasis went last game. But we'll see. We'll see. Still have a lot of picks to go. That Thresh finally did get locked in.
And I was kind of wondering where the hell it was in that game number 1, if we're going to be honest here, because I know Paralysis absolutely loves playing that Thresh. Did pick the Blitzcrank up last game and definitely did have some results on it. So I'm curious to see what happens on his main champion here, although the Blitzcrank is considered a soft counter to the Thresh, because Thresh, he does have to wind up that hook. It does leave him stationary, and, well, Blitzcrank, he loves picking up stationary targets. It makes his life a little more easier. However, though, Sejuani gonna be the last lock in here this phase for Oasis Revenant, and that Yasuo. So I'm curious to see where this Yasuo goes, because we all know the flex potential of that pick.
We do, and just the synergy that Soulbound has already picked up with that pickup as well is just so scary. Sejuani is going to put a pretty hard damper on the Yasuo, though. I do feel like it's going to be pretty good as a bit of a counter there. We are already almost done with the second phase of bans, though. Soulbound take away that Vigar from last game. They don't want to deal with that. The Nocturne as well. Shen, the ban away for Oasis, and the Gangplank hovered here. It is banned away.
And I do like that Vigar ban from Soulbound Mirage, because if we remember last game, that Vigar, it just kind of screwed him over that hard in the mid lane from Glacier Freeze. Like, they had such a hard time dealing with that Vigar, with the slows, with, of course, that cage as the Xayah being hovered. Very interesting pick here, since she doesn't have the Recon with her, and you typically do see the Xayah Recon. You can see solo Recon in this meta. However, though, I mean, Xayah by no means a terrible AD carry. It's just other AD carries tend to be a little bit more favored than her.
Very true. She still does provide that late game just hyper carry potential that you're looking for. Ezreal's also being able to provide a good amount himself, but I would say that she's a bit stronger. Urgot locked in for Oasis, going to that top side. That is something you have to watch out for.
Yeah, because, I mean, Urgot, once he gets over that hump, once he gets to his primo point where he has that Gatling gun maxed out, and preferably an item and a half under his belt, he can look to take over top lanes. However, though, you have to remember here, Soulbound Mirage, they haven't locked in their top lane yet, so they can get the counter pick here, and that Cassiopeia into that Yasuo. I'm curious to see how this matchup goes, because Cassiopeia can absolutely trash Melee's Lemons. Like, if there are any top laners currently in the Twitch chat right now, hash out your worst memories about dealing with top lane Cassiopeia. But with that being said, I mean, it's curious to see, because Cassiopeia, her last round of nerfs, she did get super low base armor. Her base health got reduced. So if this Yasuo for Soulbound Mirage is able to get onto this Cassiopeia, is able to get past that miasma, which grounds you, this Cassiopeia can be in a world of hurt.
And last thing that got locked in for Soulbound is the R5 Renekton coming out against that Urgot. We're going to see a clash of the Titans in the top side, and it's going to mean a lot for the rest of the map.
For sure. Because, I mean, top lane, I know a lot of people say it doesn't have a lot of influence over the course of the game ever since, well, the start of this season, really, just due to the change in dragons being that much more important. So, but you still have to remember, these top laners, they can snowball, they can still take over games, and especially like Renekton, if he gets ahead, like, he can go into any team fight, like, just tank up like nearly 5 people once he pops that Dominus, insta-kill like a bunch of people with his little bit of combo there, and it can be such a bad thing to deal with. However, though, Urgot, of course, does have that fear beyond death. If you're able to get that one member low enough, if you're able to get that one skill shot down, you can just make somebody's bad day become a worse day.
Well, and so I do have a little bit of a qualm with Oasis here, though, in the style of how they set up their composition, and mostly looking at the jungler. I think Sejuani can be really good, but you have no natural synergy with her. You don't have any melee champions to go off of her passive. So, yes, that's not the biggest thing, but I do feel like it is inherently better to go with the built-in synergy of a champion instead of just throwing the champion into a composition that doesn't really fit. It's like a wonky puzzle piece. It is obviously more than likely it's still going to be effective. You still have a very good matchup into a lot of positions and things like that. It's just a little, it just bugs me just a tiny bit. Go for
Yeah, because if you look at the rest of the composition here, I mean, you have the Ezreal, you have the Cassiopeia. They're not exactly going to be running in with you on that Sejuani. Sure, you'll have the Urgot, but he doesn't exactly have the best backline access at all times, unless you get that teleport flank, unless you build a Righteous Glory, perhaps, which is definitely a possibility. So this Sejuani might be a little high and dry when you go in, and I do like that you brought up the melee thing, melee champions, because with Sejuani, sure, you can run her on a comp with all ranged characters. However, though, it is just so important, I feel, for at least like one or two of your laners to be melee. Like whether it's the support, whether it's the mid lane, whether it's the top laner, like it can just make ganks go over that much more easily when you have your homie helping you stack up that passive, get that permafrost down, because that is a huge amount of burst. It is a point and click stun. It just roots them in place. It lets both of you just wail away on them, and it is gonna suck a little here for Scouting Ground. I mean, still though, it's not like the lack of melees is gonna make this Sejuani literally useless. You still do have a lot of other tools. You still can stun him with that permafrost. You just, gotta stack it up a little more yourself.
Is it bad that I get like kind of a little bit of an excitement in me whenever I say his name, Scouting Ground, because it makes me think of Scouting Grounds, and then it turns into a little bit of sadness because it's over. But I just think it's funny. Also, the fact that the guy's name is literally Scouting Ground. But hopefully, Scouting Ground going to have a good performance in game number 2 on the Sejuani, setting up the rest of his team for success. You're definitely looking at carry potentials from Hubris, from Glacier, from Slayer. On the other side of the Rift, though, you are looking at a team that did not have a great performance in game number 1, did not have good decisions in game number 1. And hopefully they were able to regroup, rearm themselves here, and get ready for this game number 2, because it's looking like it's going to be another chaotic, aggressive game that we have before us.
I mean, yeah, like any game with a Blitzcrank tends to be a little chaotic, and when you look at both these teams, I mean, especially on the side of Soulbound Mirage, Blitzcrank, Yasuo, Renekton, Gragas, like those are all very heavy brawly champs. They don't just sit around, they want to start fights, and of course, it is a little bit of a solo queue comp. I don't mean to use that as a derogatory term. It's just when you have all this damage, all this all-in potential, it's like, it does kind of remind you a little bit of solo queue here, Lemons, where literally everyone can damage.
Yeah, indeed. Hopefully it doesn't play like a solo queue game. We'll have to see on the other side of this break, though, ladies and gentlemen. Go get a little snack, go get a bit of a drink or something. We'll be right back.